What's up, everybody? Baseball season is finally here. I can't wait to... I'm receiving word the lockout is still in place. The owners and the players still seem to be very far apart on a lot of things, unfortunately. And personally, I am pessimistic on the outcome of the lockout. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, and I would not be surprised if we lost a full season. But that's not why we're here. We don't care about that. We are rainbows and sunshine in the land of baseball right now because Underdog has officially launched one of their baseball tournaments. This is a $25 entry tournament, max 135 entries, $20K up top, $10K to second. This is something I took part in last year. I finished in the semifinals, unfortunately didn't qualify. I had Garrett Cole as one of my strong pitchers, and unfortunately he had COVID during that 2-week stint of the semifinals, so bit of a rough topic for me. I'm still not over that. Let me give you guys a quick introduction to me. My name is Nez. You can find me on Underdog as Nez, and on Twitter at Nez Takes, and also at Let's Go Bucks. I have like 30 different Twitter accounts. I try to partition my stream of consciousness, is plural, when it comes to Twitter. If you're watching this, I consider you my friend. If we're mutuals on Twitter, you're my friend. If I see you in the best ball streets or the battle royale streets, you're my friends. And I've gotten a lot of requests from people reaching out to me asking if they know good best ball, baseball resources, and if anybody is doing content on them. There is nothing out there right now for this that I've seen that's in depth and really talked about outside of the circle of a few friends I have. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to give you guys a really base layer of how to get started if the season starts soon. I think there is an opportunity for overlay in this contest, and I also think it can be a lot of fun because I love baseball. So I want to get you guys involved and enjoy the game because this is a very fun format and there's a lot of very unique and fun ways to attack it. So a little bit about me. I currently reside in Dallas, Texas. I am a Pirates fan, grew up a Pirates fan, watched them my whole life. I save your sympathies. I don't care. We remain optimistic because without faith, what do you have? I've been playing fantasy baseball for 7 years, and I played Underdog in the 2021 season throughout the season doing the daily tournaments and had entries in best ball season-long contests as well. Last year, they had 18 roster spots, similar to how they did with the Best Ball Mania and all the other NFL best ball tournaments. This year, they expanded that to 20 roster spots. So that is very interesting and can actually be very advantageous to the sharp minds when it comes to baseball and these contests, as opposed to the NFL side. I believe expanding the draft size can actually benefit the less sharp crowd, just based on the way the sports are. With a smaller sample size in the NFL, you can get more of those random outcomes. Regardless, they also this year have decided to add a flex spot to the starting lineup. So last year, 18 total roster spots. Your weekly lineup consisted of 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, and 3 outfielders. This year, they added a flex spot, and that is actually infield and outfield, of course. This tournament launched yesterday midday, so we had, I believe, 6 or 7 total drafts yesterday before the ADP updated. So what we were working with yesterday, and I only had one of these drafts, and I will break this draft down for you guys at the end of the video. It was the wild, wild west out there. If you've done early NFL best ball contests, you can relate to the feeling. It was just all over the place, and I love that. That is one of my favorite environments to draft in because that is where I feel I have my edge before ADP takes place and I'm reaching on guys that are quickly or slowly climbing the ranks and I can't get them at the values I could anymore. I love that. That is, I think, the beauty of Underdog and these type of formats. So we have 1 day's worth, not even a full day's worth, honestly, because like I said, 7 contests worth of ADP data to go off of right now. And tomorrow that's going to change because today is Saturday as I'm recording this, and there's going to be a lot of people drafting today. And we're going to see many changes in the ADP. But if you are somebody that doesn't really know baseball, and who the good players are. This ADP is meaningless, and honestly, you should be scared of the fact that you don't know who you're clicking on and who's a good value. So let me help you be the best drafter you can be at this point in time. Similar to football, there are different draft structures that you can use as a form of strategy. Think zero running back and apply that to baseball, and we are going to do zero pitcher. So as I stated, there are 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and a flex spot in your weekly top scores. With the pitchers, they are very unique compared to the hitters for a few reasons. One, they score more per game played on average, and that makes sense when you look at the way the scoring is set up. Pitchers should do well. They don't play as much. They play about once a week, which gets me into the next point. They are more consistent. The batters, you could have the best player, Mike Trout, Juan Soto. It can go an entire game without recording a hit or a walk and put up a donut, and that happens sometimes. Pitchers, you rarely see that with the great pitchers. Any pitcher, truly, where they're going to put up 0 or negative in the players that we are drafting from in our pool. Because we are looking for our top weekly accumulated score, here is the reasoning why zero pitcher makes sense. The first reason is that sometimes, and this is something that managed fantasy, where they start usually on a Monday, and then they also start on a Saturday in that same week. If you are doing the numbers in your head, this is quickly advantageous because that pitcher is almost guaranteed to outscore any other pitcher that didn't have a 2-start week, unless you have like DeGrom, Garrett Cole, and these guys are going nuclear. These 2-start guys are very beneficial, obviously, because when you look at the scoring for pitchers in Underdog, the scoring has nothing to do with efficiency. There's only one metric that cares about efficiency, truly, and that's the earned run. If you give up an earned run, that is minus 3 points. It doesn't care about your ERA. It doesn't care about these rate stats. You are taking guys late who, after you've already filled out your hitters, are still very good pitchers. There are a lot of good pitchers left at the time that you start drafting your pitchers when you do this strategy. Think about this. You go and you stack your hitters. You go 6 outfielders, 5 infielders, or 6 and 6, or 5 and 5, and you say, you know what? I'm done. After that, I'm taking nothing but pitchers after this. And then you end up with like 9, 10 pitchers. There's a pretty good chance that you can have 1 or 2 2-start guys there every week. And that is very, very valuable. Not only that, but you could get a stud. He's not only just a lucky 2-start guy, but he's actually legit good. You can stumble upon that. That happens. Getting more of those dart throws there really is the optimal strategy. But it's not the only strategy, and it may not be the strategy that wins, because you could just hit on every pick. But if you are a noob to the format, you should do this. You should really do this. So the way the strategy works is you're just going to turn off that purple button at the start of the draft. Seriously. Unless you really want to take one pitcher in the first 2 rounds, you can. But after that, you have to turn this off, or you're no longer drafting the way the strategy is. From there, my preference is to focus on outfielders to start. The reason being is that outfielders gets very thin. There's a lot of elite outfielders, and then it gets very thin. And there are still players late in the rounds that I do really like as late round options. However, it gets thin a lot quicker than infield position does, where you have a lot of guys who can just mash. Infield is a really stacked and deep position in this format. If you're doing the zero pitcher strategy properly, you're going to end up with no fewer than 7 starting pitchers. And I would say if you draft your first pitcher before you take your first pitcher before you already have 8 batters, then you should at that point be taking only 7 pitchers, because you probably got a good one. But when this strategy is used, you're going to want to have 7 to 12 pitchers. And honestly, you're not going to want more than 12 batters when doing the zero pitcher strategy, because you're taking elite hitters early. You are placing a bet on those guys being great, and thus you're getting diminishing returns later in the draft. So you might as well use that draft chip instead on another pitcher who can potentially be a 2-start guy or just a great player. They're going to contribute more to your weekly score. Another reason why this strategy makes sense is because pitchers are throwing less and less innings. Starting pitchers, I should say, are throwing less and less innings every year. The pitchers as a whole are always going to throw 27 outs a game, assuming it doesn't go to extras. Anyways, because these starting pitchers are not gaining as many points as they used to. A lot of guys are being very cautiously used, which makes sense from the game standpoint. I really don't have an issue with that, besides like a few high leverage moments here and there, but I'm not getting into that. By doing this, as somebody who doesn't have any knowledge really on MLB best ball, you are going to be in a very sharp spot in your draft room, and you're setting yourself up for success early. From there, you can then see who these names are. Maybe there are some that you recognize, but I would personally try to do some research if you haven't. Go to Fangraphs. They have a lot of different projections from a lot of different models. There's just so much data when it comes to baseball that if you use it, you can have such a strong edge in these contests. That's why I love them so much. And additionally, pull up the ADP from aggregated sites. So if you go to Fantasy Pros, you can see their average ADP from CBS Sports, from ESPN, and from Yahoo, which can be really helpful. So that way you can see if somebody is egregiously valued at ADP. So that's going to do it for my strategy, for my spiel about zero pitching. I really don't think I said much that's left to be said. What I want to do now is go over two teams. The first team that I'll go over is the draft that I just did last night, and the second team that I'll go over is my team that was in the Dinger last year that made it to the semis that didn't advance. And we can talk about some things I did well there, some things I did not. So let's go ahead and take a look. Man, I'm so happy this contest is back up. I really needed this. Even if we don't get a season, I love drafting. All right, so let's take a look at this draft. As you can see, I went with a zero pitcher strategy here, and I went with 7-6-7. And the reason I did that is because I didn't anticipate outfielders being snagged as quickly as they were. Shout out to my boy Daggis Max. We've been chatting baseball and this contest and strategies, and he's a very sharp guy, and I hope I don't see him in any more of my drafts. So I started off, I had the 3 pick, and I went with Vlad. There's really not much to say about him. The dude just mashes. And the next pick, I wanted to stack. So I took George Springer. I thought he was very underpriced. He missed a lot of last season and was just on fire the rest of the way. Like, I can't believe he ended up with 23 home runs. I was a really big fan of how my big 3 turned out for my infielders and my outfielders. So Vlad, Manny, Wander, and then going with Springer, Jimenez, and Marte. Starling Marte is egregiously priced. I could see him getting all the way up to 60 by the time, fingers crossed, the season starts. He really is that guy. He still has speed. He hits extremely well. I got Brandon Nimmo super late, which I was really thrilled about. And then my infielders are kind of weak, but that's because I went really, really strong at my top 3. So Vlad, Manny, Wander, I expect those guys to carry me at that position. Jared Walsh, I got him super late, and that dude can mash. His ADP is going to fly up. And now my pitchers. I love the guys that I got here. For having 7 starting pitchers on this team, I really, really like this. I really like this staff I have. Fried can compete for a Cy Young. McCullers is a K machine. I love Hyun-Jin Ryu. I've been a fan of his for a while. I know he's getting up there in age. And then Jamison Taillon, former Pirate. That's my guy. He was having a pretty decent season last year. Had some ups and downs, had ankle surgery, but I'm still a believer in him. And as my 7th starter, I'm a really, really big fan of this team. And lastly, let me show you the team that made it to the semis in the Dinger last season. This team ended up winning $100, so that was pretty nice for a $25 entry. As you can see, during the 2-week semi-stretch, I got nothing out of Garrett Cole. Kevin Biggio was a bust. Keston Hiura was awful last year. He was barely up in the major leagues. My outfielders is where I really buttered my bread in this contest. Of course, having Cole and Bueller just go nuts as well was helpful, and Joe Musgrove threw a no-hitter. This was a really, really solid team. And my outfielders were nuts. Good Lord. Those guys mashed last year. It was really unfortunate because if Garrett Cole starts one game, I'd probably advance to the finals. And that's so frustrating. That's why I'm excited to get back to it. When you look at this team, compared to the strategy that I just talked about, this is why I think baseball is very interesting. This was a completely balanced team. Last year, I drafted a lot of teams like this, 6-6-6. I had maybe 1 or 2 zero pitcher teams, and it didn't even click with me, unfortunately, at that time that was optimal. And I do plan on doing some more drafting like this as well, where I'm a little more balanced. Similar to the zero pitcher squad I just drafted, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get 7 pitchers that solid that late in the future. So I'll probably have to go higher volume, 8 to 10 pitchers moving forward when I do zero pitcher. But yeah, this team is pretty good. I was a really big fan of how that team turned out, and it was really unfortunate that they didn't win. Anyways, I hope that this helps you get started in the Dinger, and I hope that you get an entry in, and if you do, share that with me. I want to see how that entry turned out, and I'm going to be talking a lot of baseball on my Twitter, and I will be doing more videos in the future identifying some really good ADP values and maybe doing some live drafts. If you found this video useful, please share with people. Spread the good word of Underdog. I love the app. You guys love the app. Use promo code NEZ if you don't have the app yet and you want to get started doing some MLB best ball. Hey, the season may not be in the near future. It may not be in the distant future. We can still draft.